Great, so let's get started then. So this is Autodesk DevDays Online 2016, so it's a continuation of what we had last year too, so that's why it's 2016. The main topic is still data at the center, and my name is Augusto Goncalves. I'm working at Autodesk with supporting APIs for Civil 3D and working with some partners, with some users with Infraworks. The main idea here is to give you guys an update of what's coming with the next release of those products. So as I said, let's get started with Infraworks. That's actually the last release we had with Infraworks. Nothing that is really coming, but already there. So you understand the main idea behind Infraworks. And well, there's a lot of interesting features around, so you can work like an engineer. So that's the main idea. You can do serious road design, and here I have. Oops, come back. I'll come back this later. So road design, some bridge capabilities, and features to do more with point clouds, flood simulation, and some legal boundaries. So those are the new features on the 2017.2 version. So you can see a quick video showing on the right. That's about showing road cross-section view on roads. So we can do more of the design of that road on Infraworks. So we are bringing more of those features inside Infraworks, so we don't have to, on that early stages, go to Civil 3D to do the final drafting, but you can do that inside Infraworks. So easily view of cross-section, switch between different views, zoom and pan, and control the aspect ratio on that cross-section. So this is this video running. I'll not leave all the videos running. You can always download this presentation. You will access this presentation later and have a deeper view of a close, complete view of those videos. One more thing about super elevations. This is also related to road design. So you can flip a super elevation in your design. You can have the information on the screen. And it's also based on design standards, so we have you can change that and apply super elevation. That's very important when we are doing road design. So you can see the video running that I can select the specified section of the road and change the super elevation so that's more adjustments that we can do on the project. The next piece is about bridges. That's our work that we've been doing for a long time on Infraworks, and we are improving more and more how we can design bridges. We can do all the sections and the columns on that bridge, and that's a better design instead of just putting the some random or stub elevation and columns there. So you can do a very good design inside Infraworks before you can go to the structural analysis or the other piece of the project. Terrain model, this is coming from point cloud. The whole idea is that we don't really start from zero. We start from the reality. So you can get that information, let's say, from a laser scan or airplane laser scan, and you can bring that information inside Infraworks, and Infraworks will understand some the creation of the terrain and optimize the structure of the point cloud, so you can understand some features inside that point cloud. That's quite interesting. I like, because you can start from the reality instead of just modeling everything on your project. So let me just move a little bit further here. So it's processing the point cloud, and at the very end, it's going to understand parts of that model. Yes, I think it's right here. Okay, so one more thing is about flow analysis and simulation. So we can run Hydronia river flow with that, and analyze and simulate the flow analysis on a specific area of that project. So as you can see on the video, just about selecting the the area, the inflow area that will it's the catchment area, and then you can run the simulation on that part of the project. So it's just specifying the parameters, and it should run. And I can now animate the results of that simulation. As we have very good graphics, we can navigate on the model while showing and viewing the results of the analysis. So the next piece is about areas of interest. So when you have parcels, and we can specify areas of interest on the parcels of the module. Let's see if the video is it's running. So you can specify so how many parcels we have, and then include some areas on that module. So the video is showing how you can access that information inside, use that feature inside Infraworks. So let me just move a little bit further. So I have here now some pieces of that, and including the data source, and finally, and the areas of the parcels, and the type of the areas of interest we have on that module. So here, some parking lot, trees, and the house itself. Well, the Infraworks is available to download at your subscription account or on the autodesk.com/Infraworks. So you can start using that. Start using the product. So a very common question we have is what about the APIs for Infraworks? As of now, we don't have yet an API. In the past, we had the REST API, but that was removed. That's not available anymore. And there's also a common question about JavaScript. It's possible to do some JavaScript automation, but the part of that API is available to download, but it's not supported. And we don't have yet a support or a full version or supported version of that JavaScript API. So that's a very common question. Next is about Civil 3D 2018. That used to be called, they all have names of areas and mountains, and that was Osceola, and now it's Civil 3D 2018. And well, if you have any application that is running on Civil 3D 2017, to do the migration, we are doing a breaking release, so it will be R22, and we are using Visual Studio 2015 Update 3 with .NET 4.6, and the Visual Studio compiler is 14. And if you have an application that is using the package contents on the App Store, just update that to R22, and that should be the new version. And finally, the DWG format changing to AutoCAD 2018, so that's why it's R22, right? So to migrate Object-ARX, so if you have like an application that is using a COM interop or loading inside AutoCAD with Object-ARX, use the new version of the Visual Studio, the toolset, and the linker libraries update from 21 to 22. There is also some changes, some compiler changes we're making on the C++ applications. So we have some new settings to use. So GS, Dynamic Base, and NX Compact. Those changes are coming from AutoCAD, and in the future, Microsoft is planning to remove some of those old libraries. So that's planning to deprecate those. For .NET and Lisp application, there is no migration required. We are just updating the .NET version, so all previous applications with .NET should be compatible. But of course, just test and make sure everything's still working. We're making some changes on the trusted path and for autoloader. So now program files is trusted, program data and app data are not trusted. So if you have an application that is deploying on those folders, you may consider changing those applications to the new folders. That's a way to avoid that security concern dialog from popping up on your application. So if you have an application that is running on the store, it should be receiving emails from the store review team to update those folders, and also make sure your application is ready for 2018. So we have some areas that Civil 3D team is working for Civil 3D that is for the next release. So there are three main areas that we are focusing on: design efficiency, production efficiency, and collaboration efficiency. So it's about workflow simplification for the first one, improve efficiency of creation, section plan, etc. And finally, collaboration with some cloud strategies for Civil 3D. So those are the main points that I've been working on for Civil 3D on the design efficiency. Well, I'm not going to read all those topics. It's easier for you to read instead. So those are the areas for design efficiency on Civil 3D. And the next one is production efficiency. And again, take a look at the points on the screen. It's better than me reading. Finally, the collaboration efficiency. So it is about collaboration. And again, those are the topics that are being addressed on this new release. It's worth mentioning the IFCX alignment support that is part of the IFC 4.1. Okay, so moving next. Well, if you have any questions, you can post on the questions panel. Or if not, I'll be here after Jeremy starts presenting. So if you still have questions, just post there, and I can still answer those questions after that. So if you have any questions, keep posting. I will just start moving to Jeremy. Give me a moment. Jeremy, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, Augusto. The topic I'll be presenting on is what's new in the Revit 2018 API. And first I'll hide that screen there. Okay, and as usual, we divide it up into a couple of sections. There's some new functionality in the new release that will affect existing applications, and therefore you must be aware of these changes because they could make it necessary for you to adapt to get your existing application to run on the new platform. Then we have a list of new functionality. That's normally the most exciting side of things. And finally, some important roadmap aspects of how we are moving forward and what the future looks like. As always, everything we present here is on material that has not been released yet. So changes may still happen. We don't know. We cannot guarantee anything. And we hope for the best. So let's look at what new functionality might affect existing applications. So you must be aware of it and possibly adapt and make changes to that. The most exciting piece of new functionality is that we can now have editing functionality in perspective views. And that means not only editing of using built-in Revit commands, but also full access to the Revit API. That means add-ins might be running in a perspective view. This was not previously possible, and therefore this is something that an add-in application may not be expecting to happen to it. So far, an add-in application could always assume that it is not in a perspective view, but that is no longer true. So you may need to adapt to that. That's the downside of things. The upside of things, and that's really exciting, is that this really hard limitation no longer exists. So you can make use of that to modify object types in perspective views. You can run almost all of the commands. There are some obvious exceptions. Running annotation in a perspective view is obviously not a very sensible thing to do, so that won't work. And also MEP functionality is not possible in that situation. But external API commands and applications are enabled by default, and so are all the macro tools, Dynamo scripts, the Dynamo editor. Another important and exciting new piece of functionality that may affect existing applications is the whole area of sub-elements. This is a new way to make parts of an element behave like a real full database element without all of the overhead required. So typically this is used for elements that have a large number of instances that can be grouped together under one single main heading instance, like Rebar, for instance. And Rebar was the motivation for creating this functionality in the first place, but now it's being used in other parts of the model as well. For instance, the stairs in multi-story stairs that we'll be looking at later on, in railings, continuous rails, and so on. And each individual sub-element has some behavior that is typical for a standard standalone database element, such as you can create and delete it, select it, pick references, query its bounding box, and so on. And still it doesn't have to be a main element on its own. Then another change has happened that affects the version numbers. We are switching to this version numbering system that you've already seen in 2017.1 and 0.2. And this is reflected in some properties on the application object. So the application property is subscription update has now been, will be renamed, or a new property has been introduced that will replace this in the long run, the subversion number. And similarly for the Revit add-in utility, the is subscription update will be replaced in future by release subversion. As usual, when we deprecate a property, it is not immediately removed or obsoleted, it's just deprecated. That means if you try to use it, then the compilation will issue a warning to tell you, please stop using this, and then you will have a year's time to fix that before it is actually removed. Another area in which we have some changes is regarding visual assets. So the asset classes have been moved from the utility namespace to a so-called visual namespace, and the enum values have been renamed to more readable values, an enumeration. A very exciting area that was introduced 2 or 3 releases ago with great success is the direct shape element. The possibility to introduce almost arbitrary geometry into the model directly without having to go the roundabout way of defining a family and placing an instance for it. This was used especially strongly by the IFC import but it's very, very useful for all kinds of functionality and especially for many add-ins. So we're adding more and more functionality to the direct shape so that it can support all of the different needs. And now we've added the possibility to tag direct shape elements, dimension to the edges of a direct shape, add host connector elements in families, and set up host a rebar in a direct shape. So you can create concrete structures represented by direct shapes and host rebars in those. Then we've got some various changes that might affect specific applications. For instance, the dynamic updater is now triggered on reload latest, so that when elements are added and changed in the central file and that is reloaded, you can be notified of that situation. The version number, the default option for the AutoCAD export, has been updated to R2018. And the prompt for family instance placement method now works like the pick object methods. So that means that the placement option is cancelled if Revit itself is shut down. Finally, this is the slide that you've gotten used to from previous years, the obsolete API removal. All the programming functionality that was deprecated in the previous release has now been removed. So you've had 1 year's time of warnings, at least 1 year, to point out to you that this is going to go away, and that is now a fact. The deprecated functionality is removed. And that is the end of the list of things that you must be aware of for existing applications. All of the rest is now new functionality. So this is where exciting stuff comes in. The first item is not all that exciting. Document get warnings method simply gives a list of failure messages that are generated from the persistent warnings in the document. They were visible to the user, and many application developers requested them, so this became quite a highly listed wish list item and was very quickly implemented. Then we have a new group of get reference methods to enable access to various family instance references corresponding to reference planes and lines in the family. This makes it much easier to dimension to specific aspects of certain family instances. And you can find references by the reference type, because an enumeration value describing the reference types is available. Another very exciting new graphical aspect is the Direct Context 3D API. You can use that to display geometry in Revit by pushing directly to the Revit graphics screen. To demonstrate that, I have a video which shows how Infraworks background information can be displayed in the Revit screen. So here's a video which first of all shows us a specific situation in Infraworks, highlighting the surroundings of a whole city. Now we switch to the Revit screen, we display this building, and with a click we can suddenly add all of that Infraworks background information into the real Revit screen. It looks as if we have all of the Infraworks, graphical viewing, zooming, panning functionality and geometry inside of Revit, but actually it's just switched in using this new 3D direct context. And this new functionality is accessed by registering with a specific iDirect Context 3D server interface. And Revit's rendering pipeline will ask the registered servers to provide the geometry that they would wish to display. And this functionality also includes storage of that information. So if you wish to add persistence of the graphics that you streamed into the Revit model, you can do so. You have access to visibility and graphics override settings. You have access to the settings stored by a view to display this data. Then a completely different topic on dimensioning, that you can now set properties of dimension equality formulas for continuous linear or angular dimensions using the dimension equality label formatting. And that's accessed via the dimension type. You have access to the unit formats for a specific dimension style. And you can customize the ordinate dimensions, text, position, orientation, line style, and visibility. Some new structure in the handling of tags. We've added a spatial element tag as a base class for the room, area, and space tags to single out some common functionality. And on these spatial element tags, you can identify whether the tag's leader has an elbow point or not. Using the has elbow property, you can query it for the text displayed. The independent tag has been restructured, rewritten. So we have a new static create method, which replaces the Revit creation document new tag method. And this is something we've seen numerous times in the past. Every time this happens, it means that a lot of really old Revit API functionality has been replaced, rewritten, and we now have better access to the real underlying Revit database elements. Because the old functionality written using the creation document basically had more overhead than the new functionality using the RIDL, the RIDL, the Revit Interface Definition Language, which automatically creates an interface between the underlying Revit database elements and the API. So this independent tag now has a method to get the tagged reference, to query which item has been tagged. That's another very frequent developer wish item, and now with a very simple answer to it. A method replying on whether it is tagged on a sub-element. So the tag might be referencing a male element or a sub-element. And again, whether the tag has an elbow point. On the Geometry API, we can now request a copy of a face's surface. We can retrieve a copy of the profile curve of a revolved surface. And we can query a ruled surface for the first and second profile points. For parts, we can access and manipulate the offset applied to a given face by using reset face offset or get face offset. Quite a lot has happened to the shared coordinates. We can query the geo-coordinate system ID, which returns a read-only geographic coordinate system that can be acquired from the DWG file, and that will return an identifier of the underlying coordinate system. This is not something that can be modified inside of Revit. It just reads that information from the DWG file and gives access to it inside of Revit. we can acquire project coordinates from a Revit model or a DWG link and publish them to a specified project location, and we can create a new project location from a specified site location. Some new linking functionality. We had the iExternal Resource server, which was introduced in a past release, and that now supports CAD links, DWIF, and IFC links. So that means that these file types do not necessarily have to be generated and stored in a file system, but they could be simulated by an external resource server. The CAD link type now supports the reload and load from operations. There's an update from IFC, which enables us to update a linked IFC file. We can create a new Revit link instance from an import placement and create DWG and DXF import instances using a new static create function. Similarly, for drawing export, we have access to specify the colors, and by setting the true color per view, the colors from the Revit project will be exported as 24-bit RGB values. We can use the hatch background color or query the hatch background color, define the color to be set as a hatch background in an exported hatch. The export DWG settings can be queried by their name to redefine predefined settings and to query the active predefined settings. And a couple of miscellaneous enhancements on the level. We can find the associated plan view ID, and the shape importer enables us to specify a length unit to be used during import of a SAT file if nothing has been specified in the file itself. There are new work sharing events to synchronize with the C4R, that stands for Collaboration for Revit. These are work sharing, operation progress changed notifications, and this event consists of several phases with different event arguments. There's a document save to local progress changed event args, document reload latest progress changed event args, and document save to central progress changed event args. This had been specifically implemented to support a dialogue displayed by Revit during this synchronization process, and access is provided to external add-in developers as well. The dockable frame, the dockable panels now support display of dynamic user interface elements. That means you can generate them on the fly and modify the controls. There's a new interface on the dockable panes to support dynamic content, and a method create framework element to construct and return a WPF framework element embedded within the dockable panel. The dockable pane provider data get framework element and framework element creator provide the ability for applications to deliver a framework element on a dockable panel. Then another new exciting piece of element creation functionality is the multi-storied stairs. That's a new multi-element class that enables us to create stairs that span multiple levels and handle all of their properties in a common fashion. I have a video to display that as well. So that's the multi-story stair video. So here we have a building with rather lot of stories in it. And now we can select all of those levels in one single go and create one single staircase that spans all of these stories. And that might seem like an easy thing to do, but a much more complex aspect is that each individual stairway segment here can be edited individually and modified to be different from all of its siblings and still remain part of this common structure. So that gives a very powerful interface to simplify workflows in these kind of buildings. So as said, we can create stairs that span multiple levels. All of this is also API accessible, obviously. Add or remove stairs to given levels, unpin the individual stories of stairs from the multi-story stair element to enable custom modification. And yes, the rest of the stuff is pretty standard. There's a multi-story stairs ID for an individual stair to get the associated multi-story stairs element. And a create on multi-story stairs method to support creation of new stair paths on stairs belonging to such a multi-story stair element. Railings have also been improved. We can now host railings on multi-story stairs, and we can also adapt to other elements more intelligently than in the past. So here's a little video displaying some functionality of railings. You can see one railing there, which adapts to the site. Here's another railing across a whole complex topography area, and you can see how that adapts all the way around. And similarly, for the multi-story stairs, a railing can be associated with a multi-story stair and can then stretch across all of these stories in one single go. So there you see one single railing spanning all of the floors. So we support the hosting of railings on multi-story stairs, provide access to the railings hosted there, create them, and the create method of the railing itself supports the multi-story stair as an input. Then for some MEP functionality, in HVAC we have an HVAC load type as a new base class for the building type and space type. New properties on this load type control the air change, area per person, latent heat, lighting load, power and heat gain settings required. And from this base class we have subclasses to define the different space types and building types and the properties associated with those. For MEP Fabrication Parts, we have a split straight method to split one specific part into two at a specified point. Several methods, properties, classes, and enumerations have been added to provide more detailed fabrication information. Properties were added to the fabrication part to query and set the status field on the part, and we have implemented better control over hanger rod thicknesses. For the electrical side of MEP, We have a whole bunch of create methods. Again, those are static methods on the electrical system class, which replace the obsoleted APIs and hint at underlying improvements in the base classes. There's an add space and add spare methods on the panel schedule view to add space or spares at a specific cell. An enumerated type, the electrical circuit path mode, to indicate the circuit path mode, and new properties on the electrical system to control mode, offset, and the path of the electrical circuit path. For the MEP Analytical Connections, that we have introduced a new element, the MEP Analytical Connection class, that connects mechanical equipment to a piping network. And its getFlow method returns the up-to-date flow value. The MEP Analytical Connection type is obviously the associated type element and handles a pressure loss value to include in the calculation of the network's critical path. From the structural side of things, a number of changes to the rebar element. The rebar supports both shape-driven and freeform layouts now, and accordingly there's a switch on it, or rather a possibility to query what kind of rebar it is, whether freeform or shape-driven. The layout functionality is driven by accessors. There's a get shape-driven accessor to replace the shape-driven only rebar class members, and the freeform accessor to drive the new freeform rebar style. There's a new interface, the iRebar update server, which can be used to automatically drive the generation and the update of freeform geometry with input from the underlying form. And if you remember at the beginning, I said that now the direct shape can host rebar. So you can imagine how these two new pieces of functionality can be connected. A dynamic direct shape element can be dynamically updated by some functionality, and the iRebar update server can be used to react to the direct shape changes and update the rebar hosted by that direct shape. A number of enhancements to information in the structural steel sections. So we have new properties and parameters on the structural section and derived classes. A get structural element definition data defines the section and position of the structural element. The basic idea behind all of this is that for structural steel sections, there are a bunch of parameters that everybody wants to know about. And in the past, these elements were often defined by families, and there was no clear convention on how to encode the parameters or the dimensions that drive these steel sections. So now we've identified a list of different shapes for these steel sections and parameters that they must have. So the get structural section general shape provides information about the geometry. The structural section analysis params define a common set of parameters for structural analysis. And then there's a collection of structural section general different classes for specific shapes. And each of these shapes is associated with a whole set of parameters that address this various dimensions typical to this shape. So that's an overview of the new functionality. There's a lot of exciting stuff in there, and there are even more exciting things ahead. And the nice thing about those is that we can now see what they are, what they will be, and also engage in discussing them. Because for the first time ever, the roadmap of where Revit is heading in the future is published. There's a link here at the bottom of the slide saying www.autodesk.com/Revit Roadmap. And that is a public document that you can read and comment on. And there's a very lively discussion already been going on. We started talking about this a couple of months ago, and hundreds of people have already joined that discussion. So I hope that you find it interesting and do so too. That's one aspect of publication. Another important part of this general roadmap, both for Revit and as Autodesk as a whole, is this vision of where we are and what we do. We say that we work with design data, and the new slogan is that we can make anything and any way you like it. We integrate these different aspects of working with design data, so you have a design phase, a making phase, a use phase, a lot of collaboration across all of these phases, and a lot of visualization also across all of these phases. And these different aspects of working with design data are all tied together. That's our goal. Revit is one important part of that. And another important part that we've been seeing a lot of excitement about in the last couple of months or years is Forge. So we're seeing how these two parts can work together and use optimal components out of each of them to achieve these different goals of working efficiently with design data. As far as Revit is concerned, we are very interested in hearing your wishes and ideas, and there's another public website for you to share those with us and discuss them with us. That is the Revit Ideas site, www.autodesk.com/Revit Ideas. So again, you're very heartily invited to join us in those discussions, and also you can see the list of all of the existing ideas and vote for them. These ideas also include a tag for API related wishes. So if you have any API wishes, please let us know. Please add them to that list, and please get your colleagues and peers to vote for them. Explain exactly what you need and why that is important for everybody else as well, because with many votes you have a very good chance of getting that implemented fast. And if you have existing wish list items in our system, then simply please add a number to point out that to us. You can list that on this Revit Ideas site as well and say, hey, this is an existing idea of mine, this is a wish list item, I registered it so and so long a time ago, and please bring that forward. To see where we are with our current implementation of new ideas, please check out the Revit Preview version. It offers monthly online builds and updates, and every quarter we have an install build. So the online build is hosted on the internet. The install builds are builds that you download and host on your local computer. The install builds are also the ones that you can test the API on, so there's no functionality yet to create add-ins for the online build. To get access to the Revit Preview versions, please join the ADN Beta program at beta.autodesk.com. And as an ADN member, you have an invitation link on the product download page at the ADN extranet at adn.autodesk.com to provide access to this beta site and get invited to join it. And that's it. Now we're ready for Q&A. And I'll show my GoToWebinar screen, and I guess I'll unmute the attendees. How can I do that? Do we have any questions so far?
Hi, Jeremy. I think what we should do is just have the attendees raise their hand in case they want to ask a question, and then I can unmute them, because if we unmute all of them, it might be quite noisy. So if you guys can be on the line, if you have a question, please raise your hand, and I will go and unmute you. I think you can find the raise hand button on the small tab on the left side of your GoToMeeting. I don't see anything yet, so hopefully they can hear as well. Is there any questions?
We've simply been absolutely clear.
It seems like it, yeah.
Yeah, no questions left.
Okay, there is one coming. Okay, so Matt Taylor is asking how many of the Revit API 2018 updates and additions are because of wish list items?
Oh dear. No, sorry, I have no idea myself. That's something we'd have to ask the development team. Maybe Sasha would know, but unfortunately she's not here right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the interesting kind of question that it would be nice to be able to answer. Ask and answer if development team members were here. Currently, the only chance we get to talk like that directly with them is at AU. So be sure that you're in the Revit API session at AU, and then you can ask those kind of questions and get direct answers. That's great.
Okay, I don't see any more at the moment.
Okay. Well, I'm fine, and you can always reach us online in so many different ways. So please do so, and I'll wish everybody lots of fun and success with their Revit add-ins, and also exploring Forge and all the other functionality that is out there. So thank you very much, and bye-bye from my side.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for the attendance.
Thank you very much. I'm stopping the recording.